Welcome back to TLDR's daily briefing for Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025. In today's episode, we cover Trump's latest Greenland comments, Egypt's Gaza Reconstruction plan, and China's Mammoth Parliamentary meeting. But first, Germany's new economic era. In a significant shift for Germany's fiscal policy, the likely Chancellor-to-be, Friedrich Merz, has announced an ambitious plan to inject hundreds of billions into the country's military and infrastructure. Following his recent electoral victory, Merz revealed that his Christian Democratic Union, CDU, along with its Bavarian coalition partner and the Social Democrats, SPD, with whom his Conservatives are currently in talks to form a governing coalition, will propose legislation to amend Germany's strict borrowing rules. Key provisions of the proposed bill include an exemption for defence spending exceeding 1% of GDP from the so-called debt brake, which currently limits the structural budget deficit to 0.35% of gross domestic product, except in emergencies. This change would allow Germany to incur unlimited debt for military funding, aiming to bolster its own armed forces while also supporting Ukraine amid ongoing conflicts. Additionally, the coalition plans to introduce a constitutional amendment to create a €500 billion fund dedicated to infrastructure improvements over the next decade. They also intend to ease borrowing restrictions for regional states, signalling a comprehensive strategy to address Germany's ongoing economic stagnation. These moves mark an extraordinary turnaround for the CDU, who have long advocated for fiscal restraint during Angela Merkel's reign and amid Europe's debt crisis. The announcement has caused a notable market response, marking the largest sell-off of German government bonds since 2020. The yield on the 10-year Bund surged to 2.67%, prompting analysts to anticipate increased borrowing costs across the Eurozone, a development that could reshape the financial landscape for other European nations. As European leaders grow increasingly alarmed by the posture of the Trump administration towards NATO and Ukraine, this move to unlock German defence spending comes in advance of a crisis summit of the EU's 27 national leaders in Brussels on Thursday. However, the new rule still needs to pass Parliament with a two-thirds majority approval, which may not be possible following the gains made by the far left and far right parties in the recent elections. For this reason, the CDU and the SPD intend to bring the proposals up for a vote in the current parliament, but they still need the approval from the Greens, a partner in the current coalition, who have said they may oppose relieving the debt brake unless it allows for greater spending in the country's green energy transition. You're listening to TLDR's Daily Briefing. If you want more explainers on what's happening in the world, then you should check out TLDR's YouTube channels. Today, we released videos on Europe's Ukraine peace plan, the US economy, and an episode of our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard. You can find those videos linked in the description or show notes for this episode, or by searching for TLDR on YouTube. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has said that last week's explosive Oval Office meeting with Donald Trump was regrettable in an apparent attempt to win back US support. Zelenskyy has said he is ready to work under President Trump's strong leadership to get a peace that lasts, and is ready to sign the agreement on minerals and security at any time. At his State of the Union address on Tuesday night, Donald Trump said he appreciates Zelenskyy's words. Earlier this week, Trump suspended US military aid for Ukraine, and it was confirmed today that the US has cut off intelligence sharing with the embattled nation, which could seriously impede the Ukrainian military's ability to target Russian forces. US National Security Advisor Mike Waltz said the US has taken a step back and is pausing and reviewing all aspects of this relationship. In more news from Donald Trump's State of the Union speech last night, Greenland's Prime Minister has hit back at Trump's desire for the island, saying, "Greenland is ours. Americans and their leader must understand that." The Greenlandic PM's comments came in response to Trump, who, in his speech, referred to Greenland, saying, "I think we're going to get it. One way or the other, we're going to get it," despite saying moments earlier to the people of Greenland that, "We strongly support your right to determine your own future." Arab leaders on Tuesday endorsed an Egyptian reconstruction plan for the devastated Gaza Strip. The Egyptian alternative to Donald Trump's widely condemned Gaza plan, which would see Palestinians depopulated from Gaza, was discussed and endorsed at a meeting of the Arab League in Cairo. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi said his plan would cost $53 billion and would allow Palestinians to remain on their land. Sisi told the summit, "There will be no real peace without establishing a Palestinian state. Peace will not come by force and cannot be forced." The Egyptian plan envisages a 6-month recovery phase focused on removing rubble and installing temporary housing, with subsequent phases building hundreds of thousands of housing units over the next 2 years, and full rebuilding by 2030. President Sisi says an independent Palestinian body would manage Gaza. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres has said he strongly endorsed the Arab-led initiative, and EU Council President Antonio Costa also welcomed the plans. The US National Security Council spokesman said the US welcomes input from its Arab partners and reiterated that Hamas could not remain in power in Gaza. Finally, China's annual meeting of its 3,000-member legislature, the National People's Congress, has begun, with the government unveiling its priorities, plans, targets, and more for the year. On the military front, China will boost its defense budget by 7.2% this year, as it seeks to modernize its military and further assert its territorial claims. The government has also maintained its economic growth target of around 5%, in the face of economic headwinds and a new trade war with the United States. This year's annual report from Premier Li Qiang places a greater emphasis on boosting domestic demand and consumption compared to last year's report, saying the government should make domestic demand the main engine and anchor of economic growth. Reflecting on the global picture, Li Qiang said, "Changes unseen in a century are unfolding across the world at a faster pace." That's all for today. We'll be back with you tomorrow, so make sure you're subscribed wherever you listen. In the meantime, you can check out the latest episode of our podcast, The World Leader Leaderboard, where we discuss which heads of government are doing well and who's doing badly every week, and you can find the link in the podcast description. This was a TLDR news production hosted by Georgina Findlay, written by Nadja Lovadinov and Rory Taylor, and produced by Scarlett Watchorn. Thanks for listening. We'll be back again tomorrow.